Can you believe I've hauled more books, my friends? Yes, 7 new books to share with you today. Hello, bookworms. Kim here. Welcome on back to Bookworm Buzz. Yes, my friends, it is another haul video. Now, in today's video, I have 7 books that I have recently hauled to share with you guys. Most of these, I think, are fantasy books. Yeah, most of these are fantasies, but these are books that I have been hearing a lot about. And so I decided to dive in and to pick up these books and to hopefully get to read them sometime soon. So, my friends, without further ado, let's kick things off. The first book to share with you guys today is actually not a fantasy novel. I think it's one of the only ones in this pile that is not a fantasy novel. It is this one. So this one is called Butcher and Blackbird. Now, I've been hearing so much about this book. Initially, I wasn't sure if this one was going to be for me because this one is a romance novel, but it's a romance novel with a twist. Because the main characters in this book are apparently both serial killers. Now, I can go dark with my reads. You guys know in my thriller reads, I can go very dark. So the minute I heard that this was a romance between serial killers, I was intrigued. And I still wasn't sure if I was going to pick it up, but I just keep hearing more and more about this book. And so, yes, my friends, I have picked it up. So let me just very quickly read to you from the blurb on the back of the book. So here we have this. Every serial killer needs a friend. Every game must have a winner. When a chance encounter sparks an unlikely bond between two rival murderers, Sloane and Rowan, the two find something elusive, the friendship of a like-minded, pitch-black soul. Stalking across the country, the two hunters collide in an annual game of blood and suffering, one that pits them against the most dangerous monsters in the country. But as their friendship develops into something deeper, the restless ghosts left in their wake are only a few steps behind, ready to claim more than just their newfound romance. Can Rowan and Sloane dig themselves out of a game of graves, or have they finally met their match? Yeah, I'm intrigued, my friends, I'm intrigued. Then next up is a fantasy book that I actually haven't, well, I shouldn't say I haven't heard a ton about it. I have heard a bit about it. And then when I saw this in the bookshop, I saw that it is now also a series on Netflix. Do you guys recognize this one? This one is part of a series called The Witcher World. So it's a Witcher novel. I think this is the name of the series, The Witcher. And then this book is called The Last Wish. Now, I am not going to even pronounce, well, let me say, I'm not going to even try and pronounce this author's name. You can see it over there, Andres Sapkowski. I knew I would butcher that. But anyway, I have been hearing a bit about this. This is quite a big series, I think. I'm not sure if there are around 10 books or so in the series, but I have been hearing about it. And then also when I saw it's on Netflix, I thought, let me give this one a try. So basically, the back of the book says this. Gerald of Rivia is a witcher. He uses his legendary power and lifelong training to protect the innocent by hunting the vile fiends that ravage the land. But not all monsters are evil, and not everything fair is good. So a pretty basic blurb on the back. I do believe that this is a translated novel. I think you can see from the author's name that this was not originally published in English. I haven't always had the absolute best luck, I must tell you, with novels that get translated, because sometimes I just feel that there is something that gets a little bit lost in translation. But I'm going to try this one anyway, and holding thumbs that I love it, because then I can move on to obviously the rest of the books in the series. Then next up, we have another fantasy book, although this one I think straddles a couple of genres. I think this one is fantasy, but it also seems to be fairly sci-fi. And that is this one called Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, I must tell you, I am not a sci-fi reader. I don't generally enjoy sci-fi, and when I do read sci-fi, it tends to be more time travel type novels. Those I really enjoy, but every time I've tried a sci-fi novel that is not a time travel novel, I have actually not enjoyed it. So this one is very much out of my comfort zone. But again, it's another book that a lot of people have been talking about recently and not so recently, and it gets a lot of hype. I think there might be, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you that know, but I think there are 3 books in the series. I have only bought book number 1 because I didn't want to go and buy them all because I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be for me. Basically, I think the plot summary of this has got something to do with Mars. The main character is on Mars, but he's underground. He's mining underground on Mars to see if Mars could actually be habitable. But then something happens, and I think it comes to the fore that not only is it habitable, but it has in fact been inhabited, and all sorts of truths come out, and I don't know what goes on. But basically, I'm ready to give it a try. Not 100% if it's going to be my thing, but some booktubers that I watch and who seem to have very similar reading taste to me have been raving about this one. So yes, my friends, hold thumbs for me. Then next up, we have a fantasy novel that I have actually been hearing a lot about. Again, this one is a trilogy. This one is called The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Now, this one is, like I say, it's a trilogy, I believe. The second book, I think, is called The Obelisk Gate, and the third one is called The Stone Sky. This trilogy is known as the Broken Earth Trilogy. So again, this whole video is about books I have been hearing a lot about and that I've decided to haul. And this one is another one of those books. Have been hearing a lot about it, not so much about the series in general, so not a lot about books 2 and 3, but have definitely been hearing quite a bit about this book. So basically what we have here, I'm just going to read you the very short blurb on the back. This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift, across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. Sounds interesting, sounds pretty good. Apparently it's won quite a few awards. I'm just looking here at the back of the book. It's referring to quite a number of awards that it has won. So, I mean, gonna give this one a try. Next up is a book that many of you have heard about. I'm sure many of you have read this one because it was actually a book of the month release. I can't remember when. I can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year. But anyway, the book I'm talking about is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen. So as I say, this one might be familiar to many of you. Many of you might have picked this one up already. I think the premise of this book sounds absolutely amazing. The minute I heard about this one and the minute I read the premise, I was like, yes, sign me up. I think it's a fantasy novel, but when you read the blurb, it also, it might straddle a few genres, but let me just read the blurb to you and then you can see what you think. So we have, Evelyn can remember all her past lives. She can also remember that in every single one of them, she's been murdered before her 18th birthday by Arden, a supernatural being linked to her soul. The problem is that she's quite fond of the life she's in now, and her little sister needs her in order to stay alive. If Evelyn wants to save her sister, she'll have to find the centuries-old devil who hunts her through each life before they find her first, figure out why she's being hunted, and finally break their curse and try not to fall in love again. So, I mean, how interesting does that sound? And how many genres does that sound like it straddles? I would say you've got fantasy aspects, you've got sci-fi aspects, you've got romance aspects because it talks about, you know, she's got to try not to fall in love again. The fact that she gets murdered each time by a supernatural being. I mean, this one just sounds like it ticks all the boxes for me, or, you know, things that I tend to love in novels. And so I'm super excited to have picked this up. And I really do think I need to try and get to this one soon. Next book, my friend, is, surprise, surprise, another fantasy novel. This one, I think, leans a tad YA, and that is what has me a little bit nervous. But this one is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. Now, again, another book I've heard a ton about. I think also this one is a trilogy. Again, those of you who know, please comment down below. I think it's a trilogy, but I have decided only to pick up the first book because I really do need to assess if this is going to be for me. I think this one leans quite YA, and I am not a YA reader. I don't tend to gravitate towards young adult all that often. And so when something is very hyped up or comes well recommended, I will try it, but I will go easy. As many of you know, with my fantasy novels, I have jumped right in with both feet, and I have bought complete full series of books without even having read one book. However, with some books, I'm not going to do that just because I'm not 100% sure they're going to be for me, but I do want to give them a try. So this is one such book. So basically, from the back, it's very short. When the shadows rise, so will the light. When blood is shed, blood will call. But the king's table for the order's might by our eternal oaths. The line is law. So I mean, what the hell? What is that actually even saying? But we do have some commentary here from other authors. Basically, Legendborn is an enthralling standout modern fantasy about history and power, and Dion is an author to watch. This also says, a King Arthur reimagining that adds seats to the round table, inviting new readers to find themselves within its lore. So, and then lastly, it says, Legendborn is intoxicating and electrifying and resonates with a deep understanding and vulnerable adoration of what it is to be a black girl searching for the magic of herself. So basically, it sounds interesting. It sounds like something I might enjoy. So I am going to give this one a try, and I will obviously report back to all of you guys with what I thought. And then the final book that I am going to be sharing with you guys today is a much newer release. This one I found in a bookshop very recently, and I picked it up straight away because I have been hearing so much about it. That is this one. So here we have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Oh, beautiful cover. I just love this cover, guys. Dragons. So yes, this one I've been hearing so much about, and so when I saw it in the bookshop, I couldn't help myself. I had to pick it up. It is, like I say, a relatively new release. This one seems to be fairly adult fantasy, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's adult fantasy. It talks about, there's a bit of romance, there's a fae world. I presume there's going to be some aspects of dragons because, you know, on the cover we can see dragons here. So I'm just having a look. There's an assassin, there's love, there's a dragon rider. There's, as I've said, there's fae, there's a world where they have to seek the truth, and so on and so on. I'm not going to read you the whole blurb, but basically, I mean, like I say, I've heard so much about this one. I think it is going to be a new series. Oh, there's actually chapters with, oh, look at the top of the chapter. Yes, definitely dragons, guys. Look at some of the illustrations, like at the top there of chapter 11. Okay, so that's all I need to know about this one. Sounds immensely interesting. Sounds like I'm going to love it. I'm just having a look here. It says, best-selling sensation When the Moon Hatched will transport you into a world filled with magic, dragons, and a love that blazes through the ages. Yep, I can see why it's getting a lot of hype. I mean, it seems to have a lot of things that people love. People tend to go crazy for love and dragons, don't they? Hello, Fourth Wing. So anyway, my friends, that is the last book in today's haul video. Those are the 7 most recent books that I have hauled. And like I said at the beginning, these are all books that I have heard a lot about. Maybe you could even say they hyped up books. I'm not sure. I think six out of the 7 are fantasy novels. I think the only one that wasn't was Butcher and Blackbird. But anyway, my friends, my book, I don't want to say hauls, but yeah, well, let me say that. My book hauls are getting totally out of control. But what I actually wanted to say is my bookshelves are not going to cope with a hell of a lot more books. So I better slow down. But there's no fun in slowing down, is there? As a bookworm, one of the most fun things to do is go book shopping. So on that note, I'm going to wish you all happy reading, my friends. Bye.